What is going on, everyone? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com. We are cruising into SEC Championship Week, and I got Michael Casagrande standing by to join us to chat a little bit about this on another edition of SEC Insider, brought to you by Keep Alabama Beautiful. And I guess just first and foremost, if you're an Alabama fan, you're probably sitting here being like, right? I mean, after that game, a 24-22 win in 4 overtimes, the first overtime game that has ever been played in the history of the Iron Bowl. I just want to start there, Michael. Where does this Iron Bowl, I guess you've covered a lot of Iron Bowls. What year is this for you in covering Iron Bowls? And where does this, I guess, match up in terms of the craziest, most intense, fun, suck the wind and the energy out of you? I mean, where does this rank for you?
I guess this is like my 11th, I think.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there. I mean, you had 2010, it's crazy, 2013, 2014, 2017, 2019, 2021. So they're all, I mean, this one was different where some of the other games that were close were crazy, were kind of shootouts, offensive back and forths, where this one was pretty dominated by defenses, offensive ineptitude on both sides. It was, but the way it ended, I mean, it felt more like maybe the 2017 national championship game against Georgia in Atlanta, where the first half looked completely hopeless offensively, only to come back and get just enough, barely enough to get to overtime and then win in overtime. So it was kind of more like that than maybe some of the other Iron Bowls. But it was, it couldn't have probably felt any more bleak at a number of times for Alabama. The third quarter, the botched snaps, the field goal, stuffed on fourth down with 2 minutes to go. There just really wasn't any feeling that this was a game that was going to end with Alabama winning.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, first off, this new overtime format. I know a lot of people, were confused by it, but obviously, you get the explanation. And one incident I recall earlier in the season, I actually had the Minnesota-Illinois game in which Illinois, coached by Brett Bielema, they had played against Penn State and gone into 9 overtimes. It was obviously, the most in history of ever, right? 9 overtimes. And he had said that the overtime to him was good in some ways, but not good when you're having to shuffle a team back and forth down the sideline. So once you get out of those first 2 overtimes, suddenly you're having to hustle up and down the sidelines back and forth with 80 plus guys, all the people, all the staff, everyone on the sidelines. And then, of course, Brett Bielema poking fun at himself, saying, look, I'm not the most in shape guy. This is not the easiest thing for me. But in your opinion, in terms of from being a spectator and from that standpoint, what did you make of the new overtime rules and seeing that finally play out in one of these games for you?
Yeah, no, as you could think that 2018 Texas A&M LSU game for that rule change when that marathon game that led to that. But yeah, I think we were talking about this, and I think there's maybe something it's in between that extreme from starting at the 25 on every possession to just go into 2-point conversions pretty much with no set of downs where maybe it's you go from the 25 the first few overtimes, go to the 15 or to the 10 and still try to run a full 4 down situation instead of just going to straight penalty kicks. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not the biggest soccer guy. And I think every soccer game should just go straight to penalty kicks and get that over with because it's the most exciting part of a game. But I can kind of see where they complain that the soccer loyalists who don't like the reducing a game to pretty much just a shootout back and forth where, who has a better 2-point conversion play is not necessarily the way to determine the superior team in a game. So, work for Alabama, but I don't know. It's just, I guess no one's ever going to agree on what college football rules are the best and, what changes and change the changes. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Shalisha Kennedy Jackson said this game should officially retire. The Kick Six highlights we're forced to see every year. Certainly an intense one, a lot of up and down moments. In your opinion, before we look ahead to the Georgia game, in your opinion, what do you think the defining moment for Alabama was in this game?
Yeah, I mean, there were so many.
I think there were several, but where would you say that you really think that they kind of changed the course of the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, there were the 3rd and 10 play from Bryce Young throwing from the end zone on that touchdown drive. The 4th down conversion to Billingsley was huge. But I mean, that Ja'Cory Brooks touchdown catch it really was the first time you really saw that Alabama sideline explode and just feel the emotion of scoring a touchdown. That was they one point their 279 game streak of scoring points was in trouble. It's been a while since they didn't score a touchdown. I guess it was the 2011 LSU game. So just that moment seemed to really galvanize and kind of changed the entire momentum. I mean, the Auburn students, the crowd looked like it was ready to rush the field. They were in position. They were right there. And that kind of really took the whole air out of that stadium. And Auburn had some good plays in overtime, but it still felt like Alabama had the advantage at that point moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, a lot of people pointing to the decision not to go for the 2-point conversion from Coach Harsin. I know that is strongly debated because you get it. Obviously, it was a good call. You don't get it. It was a bad call. But just with TJ Finley being injured the way that he was and them not being able to really be effective in scoring at that point, I think there's a lot of things that you can counter that with. Jasper Fagan's here. Ask any word on B-Rob. Of course, Coach Saban will be talking here at noon. So hopefully we'll get an update there. But I guess as of right now, based on the teleconference, he has a lower leg injury. And at this point, we don't know what his availability will be. And hopefully we'll get an update to see what that prognosis is for the SEC championship game. And with that being said, Nick Saban's reaction, we saw his reaction at halftime. And then obviously after the game, just your overall thoughts. I mean, a little bit of a different Nick Saban than we're all really kind of used to seeing.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, among the writers, the AL.com crew, we discuss these kinds of things. We're kind of go back and forth whether or not, we know Saban loved that 2020 team last year, the way, just the composition of the team, the personalities, the leadership, the way they responded to situations. He really seemed to enjoy that group. And this year's group he seems a little bit more frustrated at times that they're not, before the Arkansas game, I believe it was, he seemed like he was frustrated with, some of the preparation. It's, getting into November, and it's not the kind of time of year where you see a Nick Saban team slacking on, practice preparation for an SEC game against a 7-win team. So yeah, the way that he seemed like he was very happy, with the way they came back and won. That sometimes that, he could say, he said in the past that the worst thing that could happen is you can play poorly and win a game, because it'll, relax a team. It'll make a team feel like they're invincible. And it seemed the opposite. It was a close game. Offensively, it wasn't the prettiest of games. Offense, the first half was clearly probably one of the worst they've ever had. But they found a way to win. So he was, looking on the positive side of things and wasn't dwelling on some of the issues that led to that closer game than what was expected.
Yeah. And I think that's, one thing that we're typically see from Coach Saban is picking out those little things, the nitpicky things. And then obviously when these games are closer, there is a bit of a different side of Saban. But, I think the key word that a lot of people have talked about, and certainly myself, have fun, right? That's one of those things that I will be honest with you, in the different teams that I've covered over the last several years and kind of being outside of the SEC footprint, a lot of times you hear coaches say, just go out and have fun when you've got nothing to lose, right? That's kind of like the coach speak. But to hear that come from Coach Saban, I don't know in my recollection that I've ever really heard him make that statement of, let's just go out here and have fun. Because to me, Alabama, it's very business. And that doesn't mean you can't have fun while on business trips, but at the same time, it's just not something you hear from the big boss too often, to just go out and have fun. That's just not something I hear him say very often, if at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I think he's pretty keen to the psychology of a group, a collective psychology. And some teams need different motivations, need different, some people want to get yelled at. Some people want to be consoled. It's kind of one of those things that every group is a little bit different. And I think that's the approach he's taking with this team, is to try to, he said it after several games when there've been talks about, it was closer than expected, that they gave you more trouble than you thought, that he was looking on the positive side. And it's kind of been, a lot of people scratching their heads saying, who is this guy who's so happy-go-lucky after a 2-point win or a 6-point win or whatever. So, everybody evolves.
I like it. I like the fun Saban. I like the use of the word fun, and it's universal. Like you said, it's a term that everyone can get used to, whether they like to be coached hard or the other way around. So I think that's good stuff. Of course, our friend David Sullivan here said, "Can I build a tide for my cardiac problems during the game?" I think a lot of people feeling that same way. And hey, what Lynn said the same thing. I love it that coach told him to have fun. I agree with you, Lynn. I think it's a great side to see of him, and certainly, pay dividends in this one. And I guess we'll see how it pays off in this upcoming game with Georgia in Atlanta, the SEC championship game kicking off on Saturday at 3:00 Central Time. Michael, just, kind of your early week thoughts on this matchup, how the Tide matches up against this Georgia team that has been unscathed, untouched all season long. And, a lot of people have them predicted to win a national championship.
Yeah, no, it's a real role reversal in terms of being an underdog. First time in 92 games being an underdog in this game, and 6.5 points. Pretty healthy underdog at that. So, I mean, it's the kind of things that the matchups you look at where Alabama struggles to protect the quarterback. One of the bottom 20 teams in the nation for sacks allowed, going against a team that's number 4 in the nation in sacks, defensively. Tackles for loss, Alabama's one of the worst in the country with that, and Georgia's one of the best at getting into teams' backfield. So the running game, we're talking about Brian Robinson having a pulled muscle, whatever it was. I think he was grabbing his hamstring after that longer run. That would be 4 running backs. If he can't play, that'd be 4 running backs they started the season with that wouldn't be out there if he couldn't go. So it's a lot of pressure on Bryce Young to, and when you become one-dimensional, if they know you can't run or you aren't going to run, that's not a great formula for a team that's putting up numbers that are reminiscent of that 2011 Alabama defense. The first team in the nation, first team to have to allow fewer than 10 points in a game since that 2011 Alabama team. So it's a tall task for Alabama for sure.
Yeah, and I think obviously you talk about, just the defense, Georgia having one of the best pass rushes in the country right now. And, that going up against the offensive line, on the other hand, having a significant amount of sacks, the pressure that they're able to put on the quarterbacks. I think that was on display yet again in the Iron Bowl, some of the deficiencies we saw on the offensive line, and ranking 108th in the nation in that category. I think that this is definitely a matchup that is going to, be a very tall order. And, I think it does certainly help that Alabama won the Iron Bowl, that depending on what the outcome of this game is, in theory, they could technically still lose against Georgia, maybe in a very close game, and still have a chance at a playoff. And of course, there's some other things that need to happen, but, I think the hope is still alive. But I think Alabama will need to come out and play, this game with certainly a lot of emotion, a lot of emotion in their favor to have a chance to beat this Georgia team, who has certainly proven that they're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. So, Michael, we thank you so much for your time. We thank you so much for your smile. I appreciate you. Also thought of you when I was in the airport on Saturday flying back home to Birmingham. I saw someone with a Skyline Chili shirt on. So I thought of you, as most people do when they see Skyline Chili. One of these days, I'm going to give it a try. Love it. I appreciate it. Thank you to you. Thank you to our sponsors. Keep Alabama beautiful. And we will check in with you